Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. My guest, Tony Award winner Peter Hylenski, is one of Broadway's most in-demand sound designers. This season alone, he has given us Maybe Happy Ending, Death Becomes Her, All In, Comedy About Love, and is twice nominated for his glorious sound work on the musicals Just in Time and Maybe Happy Ending, and he is a graduate of CMU. Please welcome Peter Hylenski.
Hi, thanks for having me, Richie. Appreciate it.
Listen, first of all, what a week you're having. I want to congratulate you on your recent Drama Desk Award win for Just in Time. Congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thanks. Very excited.
I mean, what a season you've had. Tell me the shows you've designed this season.
Oh boy, I guess well, we started with Maybe Happy Ending, and then Death Becomes Her, and All In, which was the Simon Rich, Alex Timbers piece that we did at the Hudson. And then Just in Time was the last show of the season for me. So we snuck in right under the wire with that one.
Well, let's talk about Just in Time. What a beautiful production and what a beautifully designed production. Tell me what this Tony nomination means for you for Best Sound for Just in Time.
You know, the challenges of a show that's told in that format, sort of in the round, but with the lines blurred between where the performance space ends and the audience space begins, is always super, super challenging. But also just the storytelling of how Alex envisioned us transitioning from intimate dialogue scenes to full-on concerts at the Copa or other performance venues that Bobby Darin performed in. And so we knew we needed to sonically transform the space as much as we could, and really thought about what that storytelling element would be, how sound could add to the expansion and contraction of the space. So that was definitely a challenging one. Yeah.
No, because I was going to ask you, Circle in a Square. It's sort of a huge thrust. You sort of have, it's like, I still call it in the round, sort of. I mean, there's stuff happening everywhere in that theater. You have performers who are on the stairs. You have performers who are in seats. You have performers who are on the stage. So, like you said, this is not your typical musical where you're designing sound coming from a proscenium or from an orchestra pit. So talk about the challenges of designing at Circle in the Square and the big challenges of designing this musical, like you said, of going back and forth between big splashy musical numbers to these intimate little moments.
Absolutely. I think, first and foremost, we have the component of the live band, which is on stage. And because of the seating arrangement, and the difference between a proscenium theater versus this sort of modified thrust in a way, because we have the cabaret seats down there. It's not even a thrust. It's really just, the lines are blurred. So, first and foremost, you're trying to figure out how you're going to balance the orchestra and the band against the listener. And in some cases, because of the horseshoe nature of the Circle in the Square theater, some folks are sitting close to the brass, some folks are sitting close to the rhythm section, trying to figure out that interplay, and then also trying to figure out how you then allow the vocals to really take the lead. You need to hear all the words. You want the energy of that, but you're trying to balance all these different zones throughout the room. So there was a lot of time spent sitting in many different seats and tweaking a very complex sound system to figure out how to get that balance and really how to deliver energy to everyone in the room in as equal a way as we can. I think visually, when you sit in a theater like that, you're seeing a slightly different show as well, depending on what angle you're viewing, whether you're straight on or from the side. And I think it works the same with sound. You can never deliver exactly the same performance, but the goal is to deliver the same intention, the same energy, the same clarity to everyone in the theater. And that's certainly the game is always a challenge when you're at Circle in the Square, but I think the results are also really exciting to see and hear when we're able to pull it off.
Well, you pulled it off beautifully, because I've had friends see this show from many different angles, and on the same night, they all had the same kind of experience sound-wise. And I'm sure when you got in there, had you worked there before?
I had, yeah, I've done a few shows there. Most recently, I guess, was Once on This Island, that Michael Arden directed. So it was a slightly different configuration for that show, but there were certainly lessons learned, um, and things that I thought were successful in that design, and things that I thought were less successful in that design. So you're always, I think, as any artist, you're always learning from past experience, and you take some of that and put it in your toolbox, and you take other things and say, I have to remember this next time.
I would say it would make it a little easier, but it's not, because those are two totally different shows. The way Once on This Island was presented, and now it's
Yeah.
like this is what we're going to do, for this show. Talk about working with this director. You worked with him numerous times. Talk about working with him.
Alex is fantastic. And
Yeah.
I think, what I find most remarkable is he always has a vision, and it's a fantastic vision that is larger than life in a lot of ways, and it challenges the entire design team, myself included, in really fantastic ways. So you're never walking in and saying, "Oh, okay, we're just going to kind of do what we always do." Even though it's another Alex Timbers show, there's still this level of complexity, and it ups the game. It challenges the storytelling that we're able to pull off from sets, costumes, lighting, and sound, and it pushes us to be better artists. And I think that's what's always exciting. And he just has such a great ear and such a great eye, and he's able to work well with all of us. And it's a great collaboration. He doesn't just sort of leave us to it. We're all always communicating and trying to raise the bar as much as we can.
So I love that when you say he ups the game. Everything Alex has directed is totally different from anything else. All of his projects, sometimes you can look at a name and say, "Oh, I bet you this director directed this. I bet you that director directed that." With Alex, you never have any idea. Everything is so different. And like he says, he pushes all of you creatively, but you do it together as a team.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is thrilling. And it's working with different directors. It's always interesting to see everyone's different style, everyone's different vibe. I think Alex is a great tastemaker as well. He understands, from the moment the audience walks in the room, there's got to be a vibe. You want to immediately be washed over with what sort of the precursor to what you're about to experience, and it sort of sets that mood where the theater already is alive with that vibe. So it kind of preps you, and you're ready to receive what we're about to deliver.
So what's it been like for you, like after you did your work and the audience was added into the mix at Circle in the Square, and they're taking this incredible journey with Jonathan Groff and this incredible cast and this story they're telling? What is it like for you to sit there and watch it all come alive? And you're like, wow, we did a really good job. Or you should tell yourself that.
It's, I think, yes, I do sit and am very proud of the work. But I think, as with any artist, you're never really ever done. It's just time to put your pencil down. So, I would continue and continue and continue if in to infinity, because that's sort of the personality that I am. But I think at some point you do, and it's hard. Especially creating a Broadway show, the moment that we start cast on stage, the clock starts ticking. There's not like an infinite amount of creative time. You're about to get to that milestone of bringing the first audience in. So it's never done. But my goodness, to sit there, especially watching Jonathan, it's just you just get sucked right into the story, and Gracie and Erica and Michelle, like they're just such pros, and they have such amazing presence on the stage. Just the entire cast is such a joy to watch, and a show like that, I never got tired of watching it every night. It's just so entertaining and so much fun, and the band is phenomenal. So you just sort of just enraptured with story and song all night long. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I hope you can pat yourself on the back, because the night I was there, I mean, there was sound coming from every direction. They're on staircase all over the theater, and it was all crystal clear. So
thank you.
That can't be an easy space to work in. So not only are you nominated for your brilliant work on Just in Time, you're nominated again for a second Tony this season for your glorious work and just stunning sound for Maybe Happy Ending. What were the challenges of working on that, and what did you enjoy the most?
I think the directive that Michael Alladin and I really sat down and discussed was sort of the detail and the arc of the story that the show itself defines for us, but how we can parallel that with the sound. So definitely the challenges were trying to create this double world that our leading characters are living in, and certainly the flashback sequences were a large portion of that. Once we go into Claire's mind, there's quite a sonic disturbance that happens. So creating those flashback sequences, which are half video production, so the live performers on stage are performing against a video recorded person with their voice, and creating those sequences, which was a lot of fun, but also, a good challenge for us. And then, of course, working with the live orchestra, which is not in the pit because there are lifts there for the scenic elements. So we have them divided up in some offstage studio rooms, but really trying to dig into the detail of the orchestrations that Will Aronson put together so beautifully. So there's this interplay between the detail of the orchestrations with the voice, and then layering on the sound effects on top and taking the audience on that journey. And obviously, every time that Des is on stage as the jazz singer, we're able to space then as well and give him sort of a performance atmosphere that's different than when Claire or Oliver are on stage. So there's so many different storytelling opportunities in that show, and it's very different than my work on Just in Time. So that's what makes it so fun. And I think as I was reflecting on the season and looking at the works, not of just mine, but of everyone's, there's a great diversity. So as a sound designer, it's a lot of fun to be able to change up what your toolbox is and how you can tell that story and help tell that story. And being in the room with Michael and the rest of the creative team for Maybe Happy Ending is just such a joy. We had a great time in Atlanta at the Out of Town, and this was just a fantastic new step forward. So that was great.
Is every Broadway theater, and you've worked in so many of them, are they all different when you go in to create sound for a show? I mean, some of them look the same, but they're all different when you have to start and really do the work, right?
Absolutely. And I think the buildings themselves, they have a sound, they have an acoustic signature. And as much as we like to think, well, we'll just put this show in here and put this show in there, they contribute to what we as sound designers are delivering, but also what the orchestrators. And there are certain theaters where you think, wow, well, it's got a lot of reverberation, so it's harder to do a rhythm-based show in there because you can never take away that roominess. But if you were doing a lush orchestral piece, that adds to it enhances the extension and the length of the sound, which makes it more warm and beautiful. So you're, trying to balance. I don't really ever have a choice in what theater we're going into, but there are times where I'll try to think as a sound designer of ways to make sure I'm working with the acoustics of the theater. And, there are some theaters that are very, very dead. So acoustically, so that you're going to have to add a little bit of extra maybe in the surrounds with some reverbs just to make it feel like the room is giving something back. And then in other spaces, as I said, they're a little bit more reverberant, and you need to make sure that you're not fighting the room. And I think that's sort of what's been interesting this season with all the projects that have worked on it. They're so different. And, with Maybe Happy Ending, which I was happy to have my second Tony nomination of the season for that show. And it couldn't be more different than the work that I did on Just in Time. The Belasco Theater is rich woods, and it has a very warm sound. And the Circle and the Square it's a cinder block wall, basically. So it has a lot of reflection to it. And you're trying to figure out in both instances, how does this show sonically fit into this space, and how do we make them fit hand in glove the best as possible? So there's, tricks that we're always playing, but it's a complex one.
And then you have a show like Death Becomes Her, which has so many people in the show. That's
Yeah,
got a whole
yeah,
other kind of thing, right?
absolutely. And a show like that, very dense as far as the lyrics, and the music is always driving. So there's always an interplay between how do you deliver the energy of the music, but try to get those lyrics to be heard. And that theater as well is complex because it has parallel flat plaster walls, and it's very long with a long under balcony. So all these things, it's the art and science of sound design always intersect at some point. And as a storyteller, as an artist, you're thinking about how you are delivering that. But as an engineer and technologist, you're trying to figure out the math and the science behind what it is that we're hearing, and how to always bend the rules of physics to allow your art and your storytelling to always, sear or, launch toward the front of what you're trying to achieve. So there is a balance between it, and certainly the acoustics of the theaters make a big impact on what we're really building from the ground up. Yeah.
And then there's All In, which is sort of like people, not saying just people sitting in chairs, but I mean, maybe that show is a little easier to do the sound design on, or maybe not, because there's other stuff happening in that show too.
Exactly. And maybe there's less sound effects, maybe there are less people in the show. The interesting thing is that if there's one person or 20 people, we still have the same amount of sound system to deliver to the listeners. So we're always thinking of coverage and things like that. But I think with that show, the name of the game was, well, number one, we had a lot less time to put that show together. It was a very, very accelerated tech time. But it was also about the vibe, again, with Alex trying to figure out like what are we delivering here, and how do we set up the audience for what they're trying to experience? Musically, how do we create that vibe with the Bangsons and the onstage band, and trying to really set the tone for the piece. And so you spend a lot of time looking at that. But yeah, it's every show this season had a different challenge, flex different muscles as an artist, and that's what keeps it really fun. And I think that's what's been fun overall about this season. There's so many fantastic shows out there, and no two are really alike. And that's what I love seeing on Broadway. It's just this vast array of visual and sonic feasts that makes Broadway so exciting.
Oh yeah. Now we have to get into CMU. You of course went to CMU, Carnegie Mellon University. What did you enjoy the most about your time there?
Wow. There's so much that I remember about my time at Carnegie Mellon. I remember that the professors were just so kind and generous with their knowledge, and I loved that as a student we were never treated like underlings. We were always treated almost like peers, and the professors had such respect for us as we did for them. And I think we learned not only the craft of creating in theater, but also sort of how to grow up and having adults that sort of welcome you into this creative fold. You feel accepted, and it helps you become a great person, as well as learning the craft. I also remember that while I was at CMU, I studied a lot of what other designers in the room do. So I spent a lot of time studying set design, lighting design, production management. I had to take costume design and things like that. So it helped me as a sound designer to understand when I'm sitting in a meeting that everyone has a challenge on their hands to try to create what the show is requiring. And we have to work together. So to understand a bit more about the challenges that the lighting designer might be running into, or the set or the costume designer, it gives me the ability to be a better collaborator And they really taught us a lot about that and how we're not solo artists. We're working in concert with one another. And that was a really important lesson to learn and to really be able to carry forward into my career now.
CMU that you use today in your career, what you learned. So when did you
Absolutely.
decide, so why do learning all these other crafts in school, what made you say, no, sound design is mine. This is going to be my forte in my life?
I had come into CMU already as a hopeful sound designer. I had been doing summer stock theater for a few years before from a pretty young age, and was sort of assisting some prominent designers. So I sort of knew this was the path I wanted to take. And even at that point, Carnegie Mellon didn't have the biggest sound design program. They were turning out a few graduates, and it was a rather small program. But I didn't choose the school or not choose the school based on that. It was that holistic approach that I thought, it's not that I needed somebody to tell me here's how to do sound necessarily, although that certainly helped. But it was really about how to tell a story, how to read a script, understand what my contribution could be in any design field, how to work with a director, how to create with nothing, because they really, they don't start you off saying you have every tool in the box, go and make something. They really try to allow you to use your imagination. So they would limit us in some ways to say, hang on, we're not going to go for sky's the limit. How would you tell this story with just these few items? And you start to have to imagine more. You have to really be creative and build your way up. And then by the time you're on the Carnegie Mellon main stage, which was the Kresge stage at the point that I was still there, then you're given more resources and a bigger budget and more tools to play with. So all of these things, I think they help you become a good designer and a good collaborator. And that program for me was such a perfect fit. We also had an opportunity to really work closely with the actors and the performers that were coming out of the school at the same time. And again, you start to build these relationships and you build this understanding of the struggles that they have, the struggles that we have. How do we really come together as a team to put together a great production?
See, that's great, though. That's why you work so well with like an innovative director like Alex Timbers or Michael Arden. They're like, let's think out of the box. And you've got the tools you learned in school. Like, I've got to put a soundscape together with these 4 items, and we have to put a show on that way. And you're like, yeah, I'll take this journey with you.
Yeah, yeah. Because you're really just, you're working in a medium that is always, there's always a translation phase. And especially as a sound designer, I would never expect a director or any other collaborator that I'm working with to understand exactly the terms or the process that I might have to go through to create something or to deliver a specific sound effect or sound system or show for that matter. So you're always trying to understand what your collaborators are looking for, and they might not describe it in the clearest terms, and I don't expect them to. That's my job to decipher what it is that we're going for. And someone might say, it needs to sound more blue. And I'm using a generalization, but it needs to sound more blue. And then I have to figure out, well, what tools do I have? And what does that mean to me as a sound designer to make it feel more blue? So, and I think that does sort of connect all the way back to Carnegie Mellon when we had to take classes about script analyzation and character development. And you're thinking about all of these parameters of storytelling that maybe an actor, you would say, well, an actor is going to have to think about that, or the director. But as a sound designer, I have to consider that as well. And those tools, that foundation, that's where it was really honed and developed. Before I was at school, I I enjoyed shows and I would do sound for shows, but you don't really understand how to bend the will of the technology into real true storytelling.
Beautiful. I have to talk about the importance of arts education, with arts education being stripped away and arts funding. It's crazy what we're living through right now. Talk about the importance of arts education.
I think there's a few aspects to arts education. Number one, it's we can't expect upcoming students to even understand or know that these jobs exist, and being able to get out there into underprivileged areas, into just across the country. We really need to allow people to see that this wonderful career exists. Selfishly, as a sound designer, there's such a small percent of people that actually practice this craft. But I think a lot of people don't even know it exists. So the idea of educating, so exposure, and I think that the educators really have, especially in the recent years, have really done a great job of trying to get that outreach together, trying to introduce this theater to as many folks as possible from as many different areas in the country. I also think that the idea of theater as a craft is so interesting. It's been passed down through so many generations, and I just remember the wisdom that my professors at CMU had for me. And you can read books, you can now watch YouTube and all sorts of things like that. But the knowledge that a person that's standing in the room, there's a give and take that happened in those classrooms, and it's so important. I don't know that I would be doing this job if it weren't for an educator that was early on in my life while I was still in junior high school. She has a passion. She still has a passion for theater. And she was the one that pushed me. Her name is Cindy Needjam, and she pushed me into saying, you should apply for an internship. This is a job. You can actually do this for a living. And I think you really enjoy it. I don't know that I would have ended up in this career. I thought I might become an architect or something like that at that age. And she really was the one that ignited that flame. And through another teacher of mine who worked at this theater, I was able to secure an internship. So, it's people like this that influence our lives in so many different ways. And it's super important, I think, to continue arts education, to continue the introduction of this incredible theater craft to as many folks as possible, because I think it's a delicate sort of balance and a delicate flower, and we need to see it forward, pay it forward.
Beautiful. Well, I was at Radio City this morning. I did a big interview with Cynthia Erivo,
Oh,
and
boy.
I got the old play card, so I saw your beautiful picture sitting there in your seat. So get ready, my friend. Have you chosen your outfit? What are you wearing on Sunday?
I have. I just went in for my tux fitting, so I'm all set. I've got a dark blue Prada tux with a black satin tie and some new shoes, so I'm ready to go.
So you before just have the best time on Sunday nights.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's just great to celebrate with the entire theatrical community, and being part of this community is really special to me. And spending time with folks like yourself, like, this is what it's all about. You meet people along this journey, and you share and you share in the excitement and the joy of what we create. And I'm looking forward to Sunday, and looking forward to seeing you there.